There are 5 wide receivers this year with the perfect mix of target share, skill set, and situation to break fantasy football in 2025. And we can start with a guy who already put up wide receiver 1 numbers at times last year despite everything working against him. And that man's name is Garrett Wilson, who last year finished as a top 10 wide receiver overall in terms of total points, but we care more about points per game. He just happened to stay healthy. He was a top 20 wide receiver, averaging 14.8 points per game. This was the best season of his career so far. It made sense. A lot of people expected this coming into the year because he had Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, the best QB he's played with. And despite the offense being dysfunctional for the Jets, they ranked bottom 10 in total yards and scoring. Wilson still produced the 5th most receptions in the NFL, 153 targets, 4th most in the league, and 1,100 receiving yards. And more specifically, as we pull up Player Profiler right here, you can see those 153 targets, top 5 in the NFL. He earned a 26% target share, 17th best in the league. 26% target share is great. He ran the 3rd most routes in the league, and he ranked number 1 amongst all receivers, seeing a 97% snap share. This guy was always on the field. But then, of course, in week 7 or right before week 7, a twist happened. Davante Adams was traded from the Raiders, where he was dealing with a somewhat, maybe some people say, phantom hamstring injury, and then he ends up going to the New York Jets. And this is where a lot of things start to kind of twist and turn for Garrett Wilson. We'll get into the numbers specifically, but at this time, it was Davante Adams reuniting with his quarterback from Green Bay and Rodgers. Wilson was obviously going to take somewhat of a back seat. And that's what happened. As we pull up RotoViz's game splits tool right here, you can see in 11 games last year with Davante Adams, Wilson averaged 14.2 fantasy points per game on 7.9 targets per game. Compared to the 6 games to start the year when Adams wasn't there, 16.5 fantasy points per game, massive difference. On 11 targets per game, massive difference. And right before Adams got there, Wilson was putting up back-to-back like 23-point performances. And you might be thinking, oh, but Sal, this doesn't look that crazy. 14.2 compared to 16.5. That's the difference between being the wide receiver 15 in points per game and the wide receiver 32. But the good news now is that Davante Adams is gone, and the Jets really, to this point in this recording, haven't brought in anyone. If you want to look at it exactly, they ended up signing Tyler Johnson from the Rams. Okay, a depth wide receiver, might not even make the team, and Josh Reynolds was their big free agent signing, right? But they ended up losing Davante Adams, so his target share is not going to be replaced. They draft a 4th-round pick in Arian Smith out of Georgia, who in my opinion is an older prospect who never really produced all that much in Georgia, definitely not until his final year, where even his production there was kind of so-so, which means this is the biggest competition that we currently have for Garrett Wilson. Allen Lazard, we know what to expect of him, and Josh Reynolds, we know what to expect of him. Okay, you go down to tight end, they drafted Mason Taylor in the 2nd round. I think he's actually a talented player, but I'm not really scared that he's going to threaten Garrett Wilson. I mean, Garrett Wilson, who was still able to put up 153 targets despite playing with Davante Adams for 10 plus weeks last year. Yeah, as of right now, unless they somehow land a big trade for a wide receiver, Wilson's going to have a massive target share. Now, of course, Justin Fields is the new quarterback, so they're probably not going to throw as much as they did with Aaron Rodgers. Justin Fields is a mobile quarterback. They're kind of built to run with multiple running backs that they've been saying this offseason, but let's not forget, Justin Fields has been able to produce a wide receiver 1 in fantasy in the past. Just a few years ago in Chicago with DJ Moore in 2023. In 2023, DJ Moore had 96 catches, over 1,300 yards, and 8 touchdowns with Justin Fields. That season, he ended up being the wide receiver 9 in fantasy points per game, putting up nearly 17 fantasy points per game. This was in an offense with Chicago that at the time, DJ Moore did not have a ton of competition, just like Garrett Wilson this year doesn't have a lot of competition. And for what it's worth, the Jets offensive line looks like it's going to be improving. They signed the center in Josh Myers. I believe that he's a nice center. And then you look at the NFL draft, I mean, they got a top 10 talent in Armand Menabu. Now their offensive line is starting to look really good over these last couple of years, taking guys early on in the draft. So that's trending in the right direction. If you want to see where Garrett Wilson is currently going in best ball drafts, yes, as of this recording, they are indeed currently drafting for $2 million over on best ball. You can too if you want to. You can join in some drafts. Garrett Wilson's going as the wide receiver 16, the 31st overall player. Wide receiver 16. He's going in the 3rd round of drafts. He's going after Terry McLaurin, after Tyreek Hill. I think those are both mistakes. After JSN is probably right around where he should be. But right now, in my opinion, he's a value in round 3 because he has an outside chance to rank top 5 once again or not even an outside chance, a real chance to rank top 5 in targets in the NFL. Another guy who could rank top 5 in targets if he dodges some bullets, and we'll kind of get into this one, is going to be Rashee Rice, who only played in 3 full games last year with the Kansas City Chiefs. But in those 3 games, he averaged 8 catches, 96 yards, and 10 targets per game. And overall, he was putting up 22 fantasy points per game. game, he was a top 3 fantasy receiver. And if we look at Ian Hartit's tweet right here in terms of wide receivers picking up yards and earning targets in 2024 per route, up and to the right is the best wide receivers in the league. These were the guys. Puka Nacua was the best wide receiver in the league per route last year at earning targets and picking up yards. Rashee Rice was the next guy. He was above this huge cluster of great wide receivers. You can see like AJ Brown, Nico Collins, CeeDee Lamb, Drake London. Rashee Rice was that good. Yes, it was a small sample of just 3 games last year, but even dating back to 2023, Rice was coming on. And that's nicely shown in this tweet right here from Dynasty Dad FF over on Twitter. He said, over the last 9 games, so not just those 3 games in 2024, but dating back to 2023, this dude was averaging, or he had 85 targets. So you're looking at nearly 10 targets per game. 70 receptions. So you're looking at nearly 8 receptions per game, right? Over 600 or nearly 700 receiving yards. So you're looking at nearly 90 receiving yards per game. Rashee Rice has been great dating back to 2023 when he was a rookie. Now entering year 3, there are a couple of concerns. The first concern is the injury he suffered last year to his LCL, PLC, and hamstring. But based on all the reports right now and some of the stuff that we're seeing in terms of his training, it looks like he's going to be fully recovered from his injury if he's not already there at this point. I mean, he got the injury early on in week 4 last year, so he has basically 10 to 11 months to fully recover. I think he's going to be fine after probably 8 to 9. So this is not that much of a concern, but there is another concern. And that second concern is his legal troubles. I mean, there's potential chance that there's going to be a suspension looming, but even if he was to be suspended, there's not new updates as I record this. Let's just say he was suspended for 3 or 4 games. Do you remember Alvin Kamara in 2023 who was suspended for some time? He was taken as the the running back 25 in fantasy drafts. He was like a 6th, 7th, 8th round pick, and then Alvin Kamara that year comes out and he ends up being the running back 3 in fantasy, 17.9 points per game. People are saying, oh, he's getting older, he's coming off suspension, it's not worth it. I might even have been one of those people at times, and he slapped us all in the face, including myself. I'm not falling for it again if Rashee Rice is healthy and only gets suspended a couple of games. And if this dude doesn't get suspended a couple of games, I mean, his ADP, which we'll get into in a second, is way too low, and he's just going to crush it. Right now, he's competing with Xavier Worthy, who started to come on towards the end of last year, but has a very specific role in this offense. They re-signed Marquise Brown. I think he's interesting, although another year older, coming off of an injury. Then after that, like, who is the new competition here? They ended up signing Jalen Royals or drafting Jalen Royals in the draft. Okay, fine. I'm not really too concerned about that. If you look at their offseason moves, ending up bringing in no wide receivers, just re-signing over here in the additions column, just re-signing Marquise Brown. They lose DeAndre Hopkins, lose McCole Hardman, lose Justin Watson, only replace it with Jalen Royals in the draft. So, like, no new competition added. The only thing for Rashee Rice, assuming he's healthy, is that what he was doing last year, dominating, taking on the Travis Kelce role, should happen even more because Kelce's another year older. So let's get to that ADP situation. Right now, Rashee Rice is going as the wide receiver 21, a legit chance to be a top 10 receiver if he's healthy and avoids suspension. That's the 4th round of drafts. I would bet a lot of money that assuming he's not suspended 8+ games, Rashee Rice will beat the 4th round of drafts. By the time August comes, he might even find his way into the 3rd round. I doubt the 2nd round, but he's probably still going to be a value. This is a 2nd round wide receiver. And if there's no suspension, he's probably locked in my opinion, to be a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy. Now, before this next guy, I just want to quickly remind you about my free 5-day fantasy course that's all about avoiding these 5 most common mistakes that I see in fantasy football on the screen right now. I put together a 20 to 25-day free 5-day email course covering these 5 mistakes. Everything you need to go. It goes into extreme depth, real life situations dating back from last year, years before that, everything that I know about the biggest mistakes I always see people make. And again, right now it's completely free for you to get. The QR code is on the screen. There's also a link in the description below, and it's simple. It's just startwinningfantasyfootball.com. You can type that in right now on your phone, startwinningfantasyfootball.com, and you can go and get them. They'll send to you each day the next 5 days. Now, this next guy might seem a little bit obvious, and it's Nico Collins, because the dude broke out in 2023, and then that continued in 2024 despite dealing with injuries. And as you can see right here, he's been a top 10 wide receiver the past 2 seasons with CJ Stroud, 17 points per game each season, and I still think he hasn't hit his ceiling. But in 2024, this dude posted over 1,000 yards. He was 3rd in yards per route run, number 1 in target rate versus man coverage, and yet again, he was a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy. But the real jaw-dropping stats are what he did to start the year when he was healthy, competing with Tank Dell, who was healthy at the time, and Stefon Diggs. Despite having his toughest competition probably of his career in those first 5 games before injury, Nico Collins had over 21 fantasy points per game on 9 targets per game and was averaging 113 receiving yards per game. I mean, this guy was going off. He was the wide receiver 2 in fantasy. He was leading the NFL in receiving yards total and receiving yards per game. I mean, the pace for this, his 17-game pace, would have been 109 catches, 1,928 receiving yards, and 10 touchdowns. That would have been the 3rd most receiving yards all time. Obviously, he probably doesn't sustain this, but he was sustaining it through 5 games until his injury. Just a nice way to sum up just how good Nico Collins was last year, not even just for that 5-game stretch, but even after he came back for the final 7 games post-hamstring injury, which will usually limit your production, he was 3rd in the NFL in dominator rating. winning at 40%. Now, what is dominator rating? It's very simple. It's how much of your team's overall touchdowns and yardage, not just receiving yards, total yardage, so rushing as well, total yardage you're responsible for. He was responsible for 40% of his team's offense, third best in the league, elite. So yeah, he's not just this big-bodied wide receiver. He's extremely efficient and productive, which you now know as well. And 2025 sets up even better for Nico Collins because Stefon Diggs is no longer on the team, who was highly efficient, definitely at scoring touchdowns when healthy last year. There's also not going to be Tank Dell, who's done for the 2025 season. And the only competition that was really brought in, Christian Kirk, who they traded for. He's on the final year of his one-year deal. And then some wide receivers in the draft, who I do think are good. Second-round pick in Jaden Higgins easily could have been a first-round pick. Third-round pick in Jalen Noel easily could have been a second-round pick. He'll probably compete with Christian Kirk for the starting slot job with the Texans. But we're talking about two rookies and Christian Kirk, who we know what he is. He's been a wide receiver too every single where that he's ever been. Nico Collins has way less competition this year than he did last year, and he was dominant last year. So when I look at where Nico Collins is going, yeah, he's a first-round pick. He's going 11th overall. He's the wide receiver 7, but there's a chance that by the time like July and August, and we really feel strong and confident about our fantasy football strategy at that point because we have all the news out of training camps in the preseason, there's a chance that Nico Collins, if he continues to be an 11th overall or 12th overall pick, is the best pick in the first round. And there's also a chance that Ladd McConkey, the Chargers' now second-year wide receiver, former second-round pick, who dominated as a rookie, that he can become, when we're looking at this next year, a potential first or second-round pick. That's how good he was as a rookie. Let me explain. He put up 1,149 yards, earned a team-high 25% target share, and was a top 20 wide receiver in points per game. I mean, the dude was super efficient. He was 7th in yards per route run, probably the best efficiency metric just to show how good a wide receiver is. It's very sticky year to year. If we scroll down a little bit here against man coverage, he had the number 7 win rate against man coverage. The guy just dominated man coverage. Okay, we know that he was good against zone coverage from his Georgia tape out of the slot and out wide. Target rate versus man coverage as well, 6th in the NFL. He dominated zone coverages as a rookie. Very rare. Shows he's a very smart, savvy route runner. And he was getting open against man coverage despite being smaller, which some people were saying in the pre-draft process. Obviously wrong. But for Ladd McConkey, it was the second half of the season that told the story. These final 7 games, when he came out of the bye week, he got a little bit healthier. He was overall rocking and rolling, had a chemistry with Justin Herbert. These final 7 games, 18.6 fantasy points per game, 8.3 targets per game, and 94 receiving yards per game. Compared to the first half of the season, where he was a brand new rookie for some of those games, just 55 yards per game, 12.2 fantasy points per game. Over that stretch, he had 14 fantasy points in every single game, and at least 16 in 5 out of 7. He was a top 10 wide receiver the second half of the year. And this carried over into the postseason, where in their playoff loss, he has 9 catches, a massive 197 yards. Might go down as the best game in his entire career, and it was in his first playoff game, wild, and 14 targets, which is just kind of what this guy did the second half of the year, earned every single target possible. This wasn't just like some rookie hype that he was getting and being force-fed the ball. No, he was getting open, and Justin Herbert loved it. And when we look at the offseason, like, nothing major was brought in. Mike Williams was brought in. He might actually start if he gets the starting job over Quentin Johnson, who has been very inconsistent with drops and just production. If you look at what they lost, Josh Palmer, who I think might even be better than Mike Williams, who's being brought in, and Ladd McConkey had no issues with him last year. And then Trey Harris in the second round, Keandre Lambert-Smith, former Penn Stater, in the 5th round. These are guys that I think are good wide receivers as rookies, especially Trey Harris on the outside. Lambert-Smith as well can open stuff up for Ladd McConkey even more in the slot, but they're not threats. Like, it's not like Devontae Adams landed here, or maybe if Chris Godwin or T. Higgins hit the free agency market, which they didn't, right? Like, this is a situation where there's no competition for McConkey. This is the competition on the screen right now. It's Mike Williams and Quentin Johnson being the biggest veteran threats, and then rookie Trey Harris, who I actually think is nice. I think he'll probably be a sleeper in fantasy this year. Second round draft capital, lands in a really nice spot, but again, not really a threat or wins in the same ways that McConkey does. It's also worth pointing out that yes, signing Najee Harris and drafting Amarion Hampton in the first round of the draft, that this team under Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, shocker, are probably going to want to run the ball. But last year, Justin Herbert threw a career low pass attempts per game. If we pull it up right here, Justin Herbert last year, he only threw the ball 29.6 times per game. This was a career low. This led to a career low in passing production, just 227 passing yards per game. That was a career low for him. So even if it remains a career low, we already know based on last year McConkey can produce. And if they happen to just throw a little bit more, maybe the defense isn't as good, they just want to go more pass happy, Trey Harris starts to hit, even better for McConkey in the passing attack. So Ladd right now, where he goes at the end of the second round, it's probably right. Like, that's probably the right price on him when you're seeing that he's going next to AJ Brown, Jackson Smith-Njigba, T. Higgins. Like, I think this is a very fair price on McConkey since he didn't get any competition, but that doesn't mean that I don't think just because he's properly valued that he's still not a good pick in the second round and that he couldn't break fantasy as all things line up right now. I think that's why he's in this video. And if you're curious on where I have my top 250 players ranked ranked, especially compared to ADP, so you can quickly see the best and worst values for all of your fantasy drafts. Well, that's in my fantasy blueprint that is available right now as you watch this. It's not only going to help you prepare for your draft with the best tools that I use and 10,000 other people use, it's also going to help you week to week, all the way to championship week. This is a tool that helps all season long. You can check out the fantasy blueprint that currently has a major discount. We're talking over 40% off for our annual members. That it won't last long. The QR code is on the screen or the link is in the description below. Now, the next wide receiver who can break fantasy is Jauan Jennings, and you're getting like the best price on this guy. He's going way too late in drafts right now. I mean, this is a guy, maybe he's like a deeper cut, but he's absolutely worth somebody that you should like star right now, at least just kind of remember it. Here, ready? I'll say it a couple times. Jauan Jennings, remember this in August. Jauan Jennings, remember this in August. Jauan Jennings, remember this in August. I apologize, that's probably not fried into your brains, but let's pull it up over here. You can see Jauan Jennings last year, by far a career year. This is a guy who was like a wide receiver 4 in his team, barely ever used, mostly a blocker, 4 or 5 fantasy points per game averages. Last year, he jumps up to being a top 25 receiver in the NFL for fantasy, 14 fantasy points per game, despite really not seeing a full role until week 10 and missing a couple of games due to injury. But none of that stopped him as he finished the season with an impressive 77 catches, nearly 1,000 yards, despite missing time and being a part-time player for half of the season. And this is a guy who was super efficient last year. He ended the year ranking 11th in yards per route run. In terms of contested catches, he was 4th best in contested catches. That's a rare combination, being efficient, especially out of the slot and in the short parts of the field, and then going up and winning contested catches, rare. I mean, you remember the eruption game probably against the Rams, 11 catches, 170 yards, 3 touchdowns. He put up like 50 fantasy points, but even after Brandon Ayuk got hurt and Jauan Jennings came back from injury, he continued to put up these monster weeks, like week 11 here, 7 catches, 90 yards, multiple touchdowns, 20 plus points. Okay, the week before that in week 10, he had 11 catches for 90 yards. Week 14, 10 catches, 91 yards, a touchdown. I mean, he had so many games where he's catching 7, 8, 9 balls. He deemed the nickname by Greg Olsen on the Fox broadcast, third and Jauan, because every third down, Brock Purdy was looking his way. But as I hinted at earlier, the real story for Jauan Jennings comes over those final 10 weeks of the season where he actually started to see starting snaps with Deebo Samuel banged up and not performing and Brandon Ayuk done for the year. His final 9 games after coming back from injury averaged 14 fantasy points per game, 8.6 targets per game. And here's the crazy part about this. He did this while Brock Purdy was missing games during that time. They were playing in terrible, bad weather games with backup quarterbacks, and it was Jauan Jennings still producing. And now in 2025, like in my opinion, why are people not talking about this dude more? The 49ers lost so much this offseason, specifically as it's important for Jauan Jennings. Deebo Samuel is now gone. They only brought in Demarcus Robinson in free agency. Okay, so that's nothing crazy. And in the draft, they draft a 4th rounder in Jordan Watkins, a 7th rounder in Junior Bergman, who are no really concerns at all. So when we're looking at this, and actually let's do this instead. Let's look at the competition this year. We're looking at Brandon Ayuk, who suffered a serious injury midseason, probably not going to be 100%, even if he plays 100% back to his normal self week 1. Ricky Pearsall, who showed some flashes at the end of last year, but Jauan Jennings was clearly better. And Demarcus Robinson, who has had flashes of being like a wide receiver 3, maybe a wide receiver 2 in certain offenses. But again, Jauan Jennings last year showed he could be a legit alpha. And despite all of that, right now he's going as the wide receiver 35. It's like people forget. He's going 66th overall. So in 10-team formats, he's currently going as a 7th round pick. I mean, I'd be shocked if this holds up. Like, the best case scenario for Brandon Ayuk is that he's like 70% healthy by week 1. There's a real chance where he goes on the PUP list. I don't think so, but there's a chance that happens and he's not playing till week 5. And right now you're getting Jauan Jennings as the wide receiver 35, where he would be the number 1 receiver in his offense. Also, the fact that his quarterback Brock Purdy currently has contract negotiations, that's maybe pushing him down a little bit. But let me just say this right now. If he ends up being a 7th round pick, you probably won't find a better fantasy pick at the wide receiver position at all value-wise than Jennings in the 7th round. So these are 5 wide receivers who can break fantasy in 2025. Don't be surprised if like 2 or 3 of these guys end up on plenty of championship, including yourself, your championship rosters. Now, if you want to see the running back version of this video, the 4 running backs who can break fantasy in 2025, well, that video is going to pop up right here. You can check it out. I appreciate y'all a ton, and I'll see you in the next one.